Copenhagen. Beautiful waterways, historical buildings, and ultra-modern architecture, excellent food, and a vibrant urban culture. Denmark's capital seems to have it all. And this makes Copenhagen the perfect city to explore for a day, a week, or even longer. In this Copenhagen city guide, I cover some of the major landmarks and highlights that should definitely be on your travel itinerary. Stick around to the end, where I give some additional travel tips on travel times, currency, transport, safety, and more. And make sure to also check out my other travel videos and guides on Scandinavia. But let's get started with my tour of the top highlights to see in Copenhagen. Let's start our tour of Copenhagen at the Kastellet, Copenhagen's fortress that dates back to the 1600s. It is built in the shape of a pentagon with bastions at its corners and still stands strong as one of the best preserved fortresses in all of Northern Europe. The fortification is a fantastic spot to go for a stroll on a nice sunny day and offers marvelous views from the lush green ramparts. Entrance to the grounds is free, and a windmill might provide for some of the best photo spots of Copenhagen. From the Kastellet, it is a short 5-minute walk to one of Copenhagen's most famous landmarks, the Little Mermaid. But beware that you won't be alone here. Busloads of tourists enjoy the scenery as part of their city tours. Is the hype justified? Well, you have to judge for yourself. Some may find the relatively small statue a bit underwhelming, but on the other hand, can one really say that they've seen Copenhagen and not paid a visit to the Little Mermaid? In any case, the shoreline here offers great views across the super modern architectural marvels that shape the skyline of the city, including the Opera House in Holmen. Strolling along the harbourfront, I pass Gefjon Fountain, an impressive fountain that features a large-scale group of oxen pulling a plough and being driven by the Norse goddess Gefjon. Donated to the city by the Carlsberg Foundation, it was designed by Danish artist Anders Bundgaard, who sculpted the naturalistic figures in the last years of the 19th century. Right behind the fountain, Churchill Parken invites locals and visitors alike to take a stroll through its lush green gardens that are lined by large trees that provide some welcome shade during hot summer days. The area here has a long history as a green space and was widely known as the Esplanade, but received its current name in 1965 to commemorate Winston Churchill and the British assistance in the liberation of Denmark during World War II. From here, let's turn left at Bredgade Road, which offers access to some other major highlights of any Copenhagen tour. The Design Museum Denmark has opened its doors to showcase the many creative, cool, and functional designs that were created by Danish designers. Denmark rightfully prides itself as a design haven, and the Design Museum celebrates the status with captivating exhibitions and extensive collections. The attention to detail in the exhibits showcases a deep appreciation for design across various genres and eras. Even the entrance to the museum already signals a visual feast, and there's always something intriguing for design aficionados to explore. A 3-minute walk further down the street, here in Frederiksstaden, the awe-inspiring Frederiks Church presents itself in its full glory. Better known to Copenhageners as the Marble Church, although it is not made of marble, it lies beautifully in line with Amalienborg Palace and the Opera and features a copper green dome. This has to be one of the most impressive churches of the city, but it took a whopping 145 years to build. Initiated by King Frederick V, the foundation stone was laid in 1749. But the original architect, court architect Nikolai Eigtved, died just 5 years later while the project was still incomplete. By 1770, the original plans had been abandoned entirely, leaving the half-finished church in ruins for over 100 years. In the late 1800s, the project was picked up again and finished, but due to budget constraints, not with the initially planned marble, but with limestone. Nowadays, visitors can go up to the dome for a fee and enjoy a spectacular view of the city and the Amalienborg complex just in front of it. Let's head to my next stop, which of course is the famous Amalienborg Palace. Located in the heart of Copenhagen, these impressive buildings are still the seat of one of the world's oldest monarchies. If you have a knack for royal history, this is a must-see. Amalienborg is made up of 4 identical buildings. These are Christian VII's palace, Frederick VIII's palace, the home of King Frederick X, Queen Mary and their children, Christian IX's palace, the home of Queen Margaret II, and Christian VIII's palace, which is used as a guest palace for Prince Joachim and Princess Benedicte, who offers space for the Amalienborg Museum, where the royal history comes alive. The large palace square in the center provides the breathing space for the palaces to shine. This is also the location of the changing of the royal guards, which takes place at noon. Right behind the Amalienborg Palace, I stroll through Nyhavn, Danish for the Aavee Garden. From here, one can get fantastic views of the harbor area and the bold architecture that frames the waters. Right ahead, the Royal Danish Playhouse presents its beautifully light Scandinavian architecture in the summer sun. The pier outside the building at the waterfront is a great place for relaxing near the channel and watching the boats pass by. On the other side of the channel, on the island of Holmen, the famous Copenhagen Opera House provides yet another vantage point for modern European architecture. It ranks amongst the most modern opera houses in the world, but its design came at a price. At a cost of 2.5 billion Danish kronen, roughly $362 million, the National Opera House of Denmark is one of the most expensive opera houses ever built. Just behind the playhouse, one can already spot the perhaps most iconic walkway of Copenhagen, the Nyhavn. Snubbed by locals as a tourist trap, no visit of Copenhagen would be complete without a stroll through the multicolored townhouses, passing overpriced seafood restaurants, wooden ships and modern boats that line the 17th century harbor. It's clearly a must-see, and you will never find yourself alone there. The place is bustling with visitors that try to snap the perfect photo of the scenery. Walking over the bridge right in front of Nyhavn, I enter the quaint neighborhood of Christianshavn. Here, one can find some of the oldest houses in Copenhagen. Christianshavn is situated on a curved island southeast of the city center and presents the entry point for the semi-mythical Freetown Christiania. Following the very pretty Christianshavn Canal, I soak in the relaxing atmosphere along the waters, with boats passing by and lovely local cafes that are decorated with greenery and nautic memorabilia. Christiania is a former military base that became a somewhat anarchic commune in the 1970s. But these times are long gone, and today the area now attracts over 500,000 visitors a year. Located at the center of Freetown Christiania, it is hard to overlook the curious Forfrelseskirke, a 17th century church with spiral stairs going up the outside of its spire. Inaugurated in 1695, the church only got its permanent altar in 1732, and construction of the spire did not commence until 1747 under the reign of Frederick V. In 1752, the completely newly designed spire was finished and the king climbed the tower for the opening ceremony. Crossing the waters again on the Knippelsbro Bridge, our next stop is the Christiansborg Castle. Built in the early 1600s as a royal summer house for Christian IV, The castle nowadays appears like a time capsule filled with treasures and works of art that provide insights into Copenhagen's regal history. But today, the weather was just too nice in Copenhagen to spend a lot of time in museums. I therefore decided for a stroll through the historical shopping streets of central Copenhagen. Like any major capital in Scandinavia, Copenhagen does not disappoint when it comes to offering a splendid shopping experience. Major luxury brands and unique local shops compete with cozy cafes and bistros for the attention of a seemingly never-ending stream of patrons. What's unique here are the historical facades of the buildings that add the extra charm to the exquisite walking tour through the streets of the old town. Right at the center of the shopping district stands yet another iconic building of Denmark's capital city, the famous Round Tower. This 17th century tower and observatory also dates back to the times of the reign of Christian IV, who had the tower built in the early 17th century, at the time when Denmark was famous for its astronomical achievements thanks to the astronomer Tycho Brahe. After Brahe's death in 1601, the king built the tower as a way to continue Brahe's research. Today, the observatory is still used by amateur astronomers and many visitors, and it is the oldest functioning observatory in Europe. Turning right on Landemarket, I head towards my last highlight that should not be missed on any Copenhagen tour, the romantic Rosenborg Slot, or Rosenborg Castle. This Renaissance castle was originally built as a country summer house in 1606 and is, you've probably guessed it, yet another example of Christian IV's many architectural projects. It was built in the Dutch Renaissance style and has been used by Danish regents as a royal residence until the early 1700s. Nowadays, the castle is home to the Danish crown jewels, several lavish rooms, and a priceless wine collection. Equally impressive as this fairy tale castle is the royal park that surrounds it. The castle's leafy surrounds are truly delightful. The King's Gardens, or Kongens Have, is a much-loved green oasis where locals and visitors alike enjoy the summer days in the city. So this concludes my tour of Copenhagen. But if you have a bit more time available, you may also want to check out the famous Tivoli amusement park, the world's second oldest amusement park and a precursor and inspiration for Walt Disney's endeavors. Another important highlight in the city is the Ny Carlsberg Glyptotek, a great place for art lovers featuring an eclectic collection of Danish, French and other artworks that even includes an exhibition of mummies. Lastly, you may want to visit the unique Amagerbakke, better known as Amager Slope or Copenhagen, a combined heat and power waste to energy plant that doubles down as a recreational center with its roof offering possibilities for dry skiing, hiking and climbing. But now let's get to a few important tips for your visit. When is the best time to visit Copenhagen? July and August are best for a visit as they tend to be the warmest months of the year with an average temperature of 20 degrees Celsius or about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. But these tend to be also the months where you will have to share the city with most tourists. If you are flexible, you can also be lucky in the shoulder months of June and September. Spring and fall can be unpredictable weather-wise, and winter is cold and wet, with short days and chilly winds. The Christmas time can also be a nice time to visit, as the Christmas markets add a special flair to the city. But definitely bring a warm coat and don't forget your umbrella. How to get around in Copenhagen? First of all, it is very easy to get from the airport to downtown Copenhagen. A metro leaves every 4 minutes and takes less than 15 minutes. Once in the center, you have the option to use the Copenhagen card to use public transport in the city. But quite frankly, Copenhagen is a very walkable city and all attractions are pretty much in walking distance. If you get tired of walking, consider renting a city bike and join the thousands of Copenhageners who use the bike as their main means of transportation. Is Copenhagen safe? This question can be answered with a resounding yes. In 2021, The Economist's Safe Cities Index named Copenhagen as the safest city in the world due to the low crime rates and a high level of trust among people, which is an important part of Danish culture. Having said that, normal precaution like in any major city is always important. Pickpocketing can happen in the downtown area, on the major bus lines, and surrounding the major train stations. The perpetrators are professionals and they work very fast. Is Copenhagen expensive? Yes, Copenhagen is an expensive city to visit, but this can unfortunately be expected in most Northern European cities. It is therefore advisable to do a bit of research and put together a budget for your trip. The biggest expense factors tend to be accommodation and food. For the latter, maybe skip on some of the many nice restaurants and buy groceries and snacks in discount supermarkets, which you can then later cook in your rental apartment. What currency is accepted? The currency in Denmark is the Danish kroner, and 1 krone is divided into 100 øre. Most places accept euros and some accept US dollars, but the exchange rates are never in your favor, so it's best to use credit card or get some local currency at an ATM machine. Can I easily get to Malmö in Sweden? Malmö, Sweden is just across the Øresund Strait and certainly worth a trip if you have some extra time in your itinerary. The train from Copenhagen Central Station to Malmö takes approximately 25 minutes. Another option is to travel by car, which has the added advantage that you get to drive across the iconic Øresund Bridge, quite an experience in itself. For more information on Malmö, check out my travel video in Sweden.